As dawn broke on the final days of 1979, a chilling wind whipped through the jagged peaks and hidden valleys of Afghanistan, carrying the whispers of something ominous. A wicked storm was on its way. The mammoth 276 transporters of the Soviet Union had their bellies swollen with the might of the Red Army, while the rumbling tanks trudged across the undulating landscape, marking the earth with its dire message. Miles away in their heated meeting rooms, the Kremlin strategists busied themselves with spinning narratives that would forever alter the course of global geopolitics. Whatever decisions were taken there set into motion a chain of events that thrust Afghanistan into the icy grips of the Soviet Union. The land known for its rugged mountains soon became the stage for one of the Cold War's most dramatic conflicts, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. The catalyst for the invasion was not a single, straightforward rationale. Instead, it was an intricate mosaic of geopolitical calculations and simmering tensions among several nations, prompting the Soviet Union to fan the flames of the bloody war. From the 19th century onward, Afghanistan was caught in a geopolitical conflict known as the Great Game, between the empires of Tsarist Russia and Great Britain. It was a rivalry of influence over Central Asia that was occurring even before the Soviet Union had existed. The strategic importance of Afghanistan only grew over time as the country served as a buffer zone against potential Russian expansion toward the British crown jewel of India. Despite the changes brought about by the Russian Revolution of 1917 and the end of British colonial rule in India, Afghanistan's significance in global politics remained. In 1973, the political landscape of Afghanistan changed when Mohammad Daoud Khan overthrew the last king in a coup, establishing a republic. Although initially pleased with his shift toward the left, the USSR soon found that Khan refused to be a Soviet puppet, insisting that Afghanistan remained independent in its decisions. This led to tensions between the two nations. The situation was further complicated in 1978 when the Communist People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan overthrew Daoud Khan in what is known as the Saur Revolution. Despite the PDPA's nominal alignment with communism, the regime was inherently unstable and faced significant opposition from conservative and religious leaders in Afghanistan, especially against their radical agrarian reforms. This instability was exacerbated in 1979 when Hafizullah Amin led an internal PDPA coup, leading to more unrest in the country. The instability in Afghanistan raised the alarm for the USSR, not only because it jeopardized their influence in the region, but also due to the risk that Afghan leaders might turn to the United States for help. The Soviets feared that the U.S. could exploit the vulnerabilities of Amin's ruthless but unstable regime. This concern was set against the backdrop of the Brezhnev Doctrine, the assertion that the Soviet Union had the right to intervene in the affairs of any socialist country where it perceived that socialist values and the leading role of the Communist Party were threatened. Moreover, the situation in Afghanistan had the potential to exacerbate the USSR's nationalities problem. The Soviet Union was a vast territory home to numerous national and ethnic groups, some of which shared cultural, religious, and historical ties with Afghanistan. The Soviets feared that any shift in allegiance from Afghans could trigger similar reactions in neighboring states like Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan. The pre-invasion instability in Afghanistan was marked by coups, the establishment of a volatile communist regime, internal strife, and rising tensions with global superpowers, all of which set the stage for the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. The actual invasion was done under the pretext of upholding the Soviet-Afghan Friendship Treaty of 1978. As the clock's hands neared midnight on the eve of December 24, 1979, the chilly air of Kabul was pierced by the sounds of Soviet transport aircraft. 280 steel-winged harbingers of death swooped into the Afghan capital. 3 divisions, nearly 8,500 men each, stepped onto the land of the rugged mountains, armed with the determination and ferocity of the Red Army. After a few days, the Soviets had established a firm grip on Kabul. Their assault against the Tajbeg Palace was swift and brutal. Afghan soldiers loyal to Hafizullah Amin did retaliate, but their bravery was quashed under the crushing might of the Soviet offensive. On December 27th, change arrived at the capital as Babrak Karmal, an exiled leader of the Parcham faction of the Marxist PDPA, was hoisted as the new head of government. Concurrently, Soviet ground forces slithered into Afghanistan from the north. Yet, as the Soviets ventured away from their urban strongholds into the countryside, they were met with an unforgiving storm of resistance. Mujahideen, the indomitable warriors of the land, saw the intrusion of the Christian or atheist Soviets as an affront to their religion, Islam, and age-old culture. The Mujahideen adopted guerrilla tactics, striking swiftly before melting back into the rugged mountains. They fought fiercely, armed with weapons seized from the Soviets or supplied by the United States. For 8 years, the bloody fighting continued. Cities were leveled and millions of people were displaced from their homes following the wake of destruction. Supporters of the Afghan soldiers were crushed swiftly by the Soviets in a brutal fashion. However, the tides changed with the 1987 introduction of U.S. shoulder-launched anti-aircraft missiles, the Stingers, designed to target low-altitude aircraft, particularly enemy helicopters and planes. The weapon system is famed for its fire-and-forget technology, which means the operator can seek cover or relocate immediately after firing the missile, making it particularly suited to the hit-and-run tactics of guerrilla warfare. Its infrared homing seeker locks onto the heat emitted by the target, guiding the missile to strike with precision. This allowed the Mujahideen to litter the Afghan sky with the wreckage of Soviet planes and helicopters. The Soviet forces were utterly demoralized. By the time Mikhail Gorbachev had ascended to the helm of the Soviet Union, the morale of their forces had crumbled. The Soviets made earnest attempts to strengthen the PDPA's grip on the reins of power in the country. However, it became very clear to them that this wouldn't be a good long-term decision. This realization culminated in the signing of the Geneva Accords, a settlement involving the situation in Afghanistan on April 14, 1988. The once mighty Red Army had no sight of victory, and with a weary sigh began their withdrawal on May 15, 1988. This brutal chapter that spanned almost a full decade left a dark legacy in its wake. The human toll of this conflict was devastating. Approximately 15,000 Soviet soldiers perished on the battlefield. However, the local Afghan populace bore the brunt of this conflict. The estimates vary widely, but it is generally accepted that at least 1 million Afghan civilians died during the invasion and its immediate aftermath. The war claimed the lives of an estimated 80,000 Afghan soldiers. The aftershocks of the invasion echoed far beyond the borders of Afghanistan. It marked the end of détente and a return to the frosty hostilities of the Cold War. The war became a significant strain on the Soviet economy and exposed cracks in the Soviet Union's image of invincibility, contributing to the eventual collapse of the USSR in 1991. In addition, Afghanistan morphed into a breeding ground for militancy and terrorism. It was in the crucible of this conflict that extremist groups like Al-Qaeda and individuals like Osama bin Laden found fertile ground to grow. The global ramifications of this shift continue to repeat into the present, shaping international relations and national security policies around the globe. The last Soviet soldier retreated across the border of Afghanistan on February 15, 1989, concluding the Soviet presence in the country. The rumbling tanks and the sounds of aircraft may have left the rugged landscape of Afghanistan, but the scars left behind in the wake of the war remain as vivid today. We hope today's